Hey everybody, Clint McElroy here as your old pal Doc Curmudgeon as Doc Curmudgeon Saves Comics. We are going issue by issue through DC Rebirth. We got 5 more to do today. So let's get started. Starting off with, well, let's call it the flagship of the DC network, Action Rebirth #1. Let's do it. Wow. They got a tough job dealing with Superman in the DC universe and with this Rebirth reboot because they got too many damn Supermen. Men's? Anyway, you got Superman from Earth 1 and 2 and 3, and one's married and got a kid and got a beard, and then Clark Kent's dead, and then Clark Kent's not dead. So how do they solve the problem? Well, Dan Jurgens and Patrick Zurcher decide to solve the problem. They'll just throw more Supermen at them. Yeah, this is like the days with the cyborg Superman and the clone Superman and everything else. All these different Supermen that they're throwing at him. We got characters coming back from the dead left and right in this book. One thing I do notice, very consistent with these Rebirth books so far, very realistic art style. I'm wondering if this is like a subtle nod to the movie universe and trying to bring the art style into a little bit more a closer look with a cinematic look. It's really a good book. At least it leaves me intrigued as to what's coming. One of the things with Superman is, maybe it gets a little predictable with all of his powers and abilities and everything else. Oh, by the way, really cool use of heat vision to shave. Which we've seen before. But all in all, Action Rebirth 1, yeah, go ahead and pick it up. Next up, DC Rebirth, Aquaman. Okay. I like it. I like what they're saying. It's kind of a Game of Thrones kind of thing. I mean, there's plenty of action, just like in Game of Thrones. He's dealing with terrorists and everything else, but they're really selling Aquaman as the monarch and dealing with all these factions. How he's kind of a loner, Dottie, a loner, a rebel. It's just him and Mira. Nobody else understands him. But it really is a nice setup. And the one thing, though, I'm really getting tired of writers feeling like they have to justify Aquaman. Yeah, okay, he was a joke for a long time, but let's move on with it. We haven't made fish talking jokes in a long, long time. Yeah, this is a keeper, too. DC Rebirth Detective #1. All right, this is another continuing trend. Batman in groups, Batman in teams. Batman's the solitary loner. Of course, that all changed when they stuck the kid in the green short shorts in with him. But this is like Outsiders and Batman Incorporated and Batman International, where he's taking a group of brand new heroes, closely, sometimes not so closely related to him, and trying to train them up to be the next era of heroes, which is fine. And it looks really cool. It's a cool concept. I just want to make sure at some point one of these Batman books is him by himself. That's the strength of Batman. Solving problems on his own, getting out of traps on his own, figuring out crimes on his own. Yeah, I know. All the great detectives have Watsons and sidekicks and everything else, but at some point, one of these Batman books needs to be him by himself. But still, detective, pretty good start. Clayface, interesting addition. We'll see what happens with that. DC Rebirth Flash #1. They always talk about how tough it is to do Superman, because he's omnipotent and coming up with threats and everything else. That's why they depowered him, well, a couple of different times. To me, Flash would be even tougher. Let's face it, super speed is a very kinetic power to have. I mean, you got to see it in motion. I think that's one of the things the TV show does really well, and maybe better than the static images in a comic book. Having said that, though, this comic feels like they are realigning the comic even closer with the TV show, which is not all bad. Flashpoint is where all this started, and this is another one of those books that is kind of like, well, sorry about Flashpoint, we're going to try to make up for it, but not too much of that. Flash by Williamson and I cannot say the artist's name, Di Giandomenico. Yeah, that was pretty close. Is the first one I've seen in the Rebirth with a very stylized look, art-wise. So maybe that's going to work. But man, there's a lot of exposition. I'm going to give this a borderline pass. We will go with this for at least one more issue. Time to take a look at DC Rebirth, Wonder Woman, #1. I feel like I just watched a one-woman show. And I mean like a 4-hour one-woman show starring Fran Drescher. Nobody speaks in this book except Wonder Woman. Every line of dialogue, what few there are, every caption, everything, Wonder Woman. It's basically a monologue, a really dense monologue. Now, I understand the challenge. I mean, you've got all these different origins for Wonder Woman. She was shaped from clay. She was the child of a god and an Amazon. They got to resolve all these things. I understand that. But this is so dense. It reads like an entry in the who's who, the DC universe. There's no storytelling to it at all. It is not compelling. And sorry, it doesn't make me want to pick up any more issues of it. And this is one of the big three. They're pushing Wonder Woman big time. Oh, there's a costume change. Maybe to bring her more in line with what she's going to look like in her own movie. I don't know. But this one's a pass. So what have we learned today? Well, we've learned that if you want a new card game, Simon's Cat is the way to go. Action Comics Rebirth 1, yeah, that's a yay. Aquaman, that's a yay. Detective, that's a yay. Flash, borderline, but we'll keep one toe in the yay puddle. Wonder Woman, did nothing for me. So 4 out of 5, that means 7 out of 9 so far. That's a pretty good batting average for Rebirth. We'll see what happens next week. To be continued.